In our last session, we started integrating the Spring security layer along with the JWT. That means we completed already how to create the JWT token and as well as validating the JWT token. That logic individually we completed. Okay, it's not integrated with the security layer with respect to API access. So we just completed how to generate the token, what is a JWT library, okay, and how we are going to create the tokens, how we are going to validate the tokens based on the expiry time and based on the user ID point of view. We discussed all this information in our previous session, and after that, in last session especially, we started integrating the Spring Boot security configuration. So that means and whenever we are doing user authentication, what Spring Boot security is suggesting here it is, wherever the table, whatever the table we are dealing with the user credentials, so that table level we can okay, we can implement an interface called as user details. Table in the sense entity class point of view. So if you go to the entity class, what we did, we take an interface called as user details interface. And if you observe here, this user details interface is from the security module. So that what is the advantage of this is whenever we are doing the security check, once we started our application deployment and all, so internally it will utilize this bean object. Okay, internally it will utilize the user details bean object as part of the security context in the security context level. We will see that flow once we are done with our examples. Okay, so then we will internally it will maintain some security context, and inside that context it will maintain the user information to validate whether the user is really available in the database also or not. So we will discuss that part. And after that, what Spring Boot security point of view we did is we created again one more component class or a service layer class, and we implemented one more interface called as user details service. So this is a service class or component class, and previous one is we made via entity class point of view. So user details we implemented along with the entity class to deal with the user credentials. I mean, what is the user ID and what are the roles available and everything is account logged, blocked. To deal with all that information, we're taking entity class level. But this class is specially dealing with this interface, is specially dealing with loading the user information dynamically. Whenever I'm okay, security layer internally, what it will do is it will pass the requested user ID to this method always. Security layer internal will pass. Then whenever it is passing, then what it will do, it will make a call to the DB and it will load the data from the database, whether user existed or not in the database. So this call will be helpful by the security module. I mean, this call will be made by the security layer internal. So these two things we did in the last session especially, and today continuation to that, what we have to do, let's see, here it is. So far on a high level, what we completed here it is on a high level point of view. So we implemented basic APIs. Okay, we implemented our APIs. So far what we completed is we implemented the APIs. We implemented the APIs, but there is no security point of view. So we have protected APIs, public APIs. So we implemented both. I mean, we have to segregate while security point of view whether which is a protected, which is a public one. By default, right now everything is public only. Why? We don't have a security. So that's why everything will become public only. But whenever we have an application, generally we will sometimes we'll have public APIs, protected APIs. So this configuration we will do along with security layer. We will see that. Okay, this is pending, but we implemented the APIs. After that, what we did, one more major step, we understood JWT libraries, JWT libraries, and as part of JWT libraries means, so what the process of creating JWT tokens. So how to create a JWT token, as well as we understood like validating the tokens also. So this logic also, this implementation is also completed. So this implementation also completed here, right? And after that, the third step, what we did in the last session is, especially we started configuring the security, Spring security. So now it's all about we are enabling the Spring Boot security with respect to user credentials point of view. So user credentials point of view, we started integrate configuring the Spring Boot security. So in this case, again, what we did is the step, one more step, what we did here it is. So we did like, we implemented a class called as user details, sorry, interface user details by our entity class. And which entity class? The class which is dealing with the table where you are having the credentials, username and password especially. So we are dealing with a credentials class point of view. We implemented the user details interface. And the second step, what we did in the same point of view, here it is. We implemented again one more interface called as user details service. User details service. So what is the point here it is? Again, this is also given by the Spring security layer only. So why we are creating one more component class, implemented user detail service means what we did, we created a component class. We created a component class, or you can create it as a service class also, nothing but at the rate service point of view. So what is the purpose of this? Loading user information, from the database, from the DB. So who will utilize this object, guys? Who will utilize this object? So this class or this instance or this service, whatever it is, this instance or this methods, whatever we implemented right now with respect to user details service point of view. Okay, so Spring security context, will be utilized internally. Spring security context will be utilized internally. So this is the things we did right now. So that means we, as an individual point of view, we did this. Now this component, whatever we did right now, I mean, in the last session, we have to utilize this two things. We have to configure these two things in somewhere else in the upcoming steps. So now let the fourth step, yes, continuation to our last session. Today what we are doing is the fourth step point of view. Here we are configuring, okay. So we are writing a logic, or we are configuring every, or something like I can say like implementation like of every incoming request tokens available or not, so what is the first step we have to do? First of all, we have to see token available or not. Okay, that is what we have to implement. If token available, okay, if token available, then what we used to say is we are going to go for the validating the token. So that means it has to be done for every incoming request. And sometimes if token not available, so again there are two scenarios in this case. If token not available, so again in this case two scenarios. What is those scenarios? One is if it is a public API call, so that means no security, no token required, right? So that means in that case security layer should ignore the, okay, token validation. If it is a public call, ignore the token validation. That means there is no security you are applying, simply the request will go to the controller layer. Why? It is a public API. So this public API point of view we will configure which services are public API. That is one scenario. Second scenario, even though it is a protected API, but still token is missing, then what we have to say is 401 unauthorized point of view, we have to say that. Why? That means token is missing. It's not, see, validating the token is one kind in this case, even for the protected API point of view only. then we will say that whether token is a valid token. So if it is a valid token, then again we will give access to the API. Nothing but the request will be forwarded to controller layer. Now if it is an invalid token, if it is an invalid token, that means how it will become invalid. Maybe username is not matching or the token is already expired. So something like that, then again unauthorized. Okay, so again what you are going to do, unauthorized. So in this case, protected API, but token is missing. That means ultimately 401 in unauthorized only. So what we are going to do is 401 unauthorized. So that means why token is not sending. Public API point of view, token is not required. There is no security, there is no token. So that is how we have to implement this logic today. Okay, so this entire steps we have to implement right now. These entire steps we have to implement right now. So to what to do now? So here I have used one small thing called as every incoming request. Every incoming request. So simple thing is whenever a request coming from the client to server. So first of all we have to verify every request. After that we will decide. Security layer has to decide whether it is a public API call or protected API. If it is public API, okay, then no token, no security validation and all. Okay, direct access to controller. Okay, no token validation, nothing. If it is protected API, then token validation, all these things will be coming into the picture, right? So this is what we have to do that now. Token validation coming into the picture. So that means security point of view, client, and then server, or maybe controller point of view. Okay. So what is the point here? It is every request, all the request. Then internally it will check whether it is a public API or protected API or not. So what we have to do now that? What we have to do that? Okay. So let's first of all assume with respect to it's a protected API point of view, because our main concern is all about protected APIs. That's why we are implementing the security, right? So what we can do is in this case, let's write a logic with respect to by considering API as a protected API, like every incoming request is having a token or not, like we will do that. So let's see here what we have to do is in this case, Spring Boot provided. So what is the next step you are doing here? It is validating token for every protected API. For every protected API point of view, we are doing that. Validating token for every protected API incoming request. So in this case, Spring Boot provided a filter. I think you know the filters concept. When you when you are learning the servlets, we have a concept called as filters concept. Okay, so if you don't have knowledge, just go through the filters one more time. So what is the point of filters generally is when you are especially working in it's a core advanced Java concept. Whenever a request comes from the client to server, okay, it's a client application and it is a server application. Generally, in the server application point of view, we define servlets, right? Whenever we define a servlet, right, we will define servlet. So the client request will come from, request coming from the client to, it will reach to servlet application and servlet will provide the response. But generally, the filters are similar to servlets only, but filters are always executed prior to the servlets. So that is how filters are designed. So that means a filter will be executed always the moment whenever we defined any filters in our web applications. In our web applications, the filters are always executed first prior to the servlet's execution. So you can define any number of filters. You will just do some filter chain and all. But ultimately, before executing a servlet, 100% is always filters are executed. That means filters are executed for every request, not only for a specific servlet point of view. For every request, for every incoming request, every filter will be executed. For every incoming request, every filter will be executed. Every filter class will be executed. So this is the concept from our advanced Java. Along with servlets level, we have to know this. So that means now in our Spring Boot point of view also, we know that whenever we send a request, the request always reaches to the dispatcher servlet. Okay, before reaching to the controller, we discussed like what dispatcher servlet. There is a some concept called as dispatcher servlet. So then dispatcher servlet will forward all the requests and responses with respect to point of view. Dispatcher servlet will take. Dispatcher servlet is going to take. Right now, but still here what we are doing, we have to validate first of all every incoming request is protected or is it having a valid token or not. Then only we should give access to our Spring components. These are all our Spring components, Spring MVC components. So that means this is all my protected area. This is where I have entire logic. So this is all my Spring component. Okay. So before giving access to this dispatcher servlet itself, now security layer point of view, we are doing what? We are applying a filter. Okay. What is the meaning of filter? When filters are executed always before the servlet. So that means now whatever the filter we are going to create right now, that filter will be executed before the dispatcher servlet itself. Before the dispatcher servlet itself. Before dispatcher servlet itself, the filter will be executed. So that means now any request came from the client, now the request will go to the filter. Now filter point of view, it will filter all this logic. Okay, token is a valid or not. The logic we are going to implement right now. If everything is good, filter is saying like, okay, token is valid and everything. Then, I mean, internally Spring Security integration, we will do that. This filter also will integrate again with respect to Spring Security point of view. Okay, so here, assume this is a security again. Security layer point of view, security configuration. That means nothing but security layer. So here in the security configuration point of view, we will configure public APIs and private API for protected like that. Okay, so now finally Spring security layer will contact with filter and filter will say like, okay, this is a valid token based on the protect like that. Filter will inform to the security layer. Now security layer will verify, okay, protected or whatever it is. Then the request will go to the dispatcher servlet if everything is good. Now, in case something is bad with respect to invalid token and all, security layer will not forward request to dispatcher servlet also. So that means the request response will come back from here only when in invalid cases point of view. If it is a valid case, valid token, valid API and everything, then only say okay, security layer will allow request to dispatcher servlet. Then dispatcher servlet will make a call to the controller layers. So that means even before dispatcher servlet itself, we are whatever the filter we are adding right now, when it will be executed, guys, before the dispatcher servlet itself, because the fundamental rule in our advanced Java is filters are always executed before the servlets. Why I am saying this point right now is so many people are unable to explain this point in the interviews. What like filter will be executed before dispatcher servlet or after dispatcher servlet. So many people are failing in this area. So many people used to say like once the request reaching to the dispatcher select, then filter will be executed. No, the fundamental rule itself, filters are always executed before the servlets. Whatever servlet it is doesn't matter. Simply filter will be always executed prior to the servlets. So that's why whatever the filter we are creating, then okay, it will be executed before reaching to the dispatcher servlet. Okay, so we know that what is a dispatcher servlet. Before security point of view, we don't have any filter, we don't have any security. That means the directly the request hand over into the dispatcher servlet. And response is also directly coming from the dispatcher servlet to client application. But now we added one integrated layer security, right? So that's why in security point of view, filter also. That is what the filter point here it is. Now, so validating token for every protected API with respect to incoming request point of view. Let's see here it is. The filter name, we have a predefined filter called as once per request filter. So we have a predefined filter class provided by Spring Boot. So if you understand the meaning of this once per request means the meaning of this filter class name is once for every request or for every request this will be executed. This will be executed for once for every request. For every request, this the logic whatever we are going to define as part of this filter method is going to be executed. So that is what the meaning of once per request filter. So let's define it. How to do that? So in this case, what we have to do is we have to create a component class. That means we are defining user defined filter class. Create component class, nothing but filter only. So the class filter, why? Because we are extending because we are extending the once per request filter. That's why it will become as a filter class. The moment you extended filter class, your class will become filter class. So that's why, and why we are making it as a component, because automatically Spring Boot framework will scan this class, even the object will be created by the Spring Boot container. That's the reason we are making it as a component. So let's take a Java class now. What I'm doing here, it is I'm taking some class called as JWT token filter. Like that, I'm writing the naming convention also. JWT okay filter. So that, and what, it's a component, so the reason is automatically object will be created by the container. That's why we are making it as a component. And why I'm saying like this is a, we have to make it as a filter class by extending predefined filter class called as once per request filter. This is provided by the Spring Web module again. So what is this saying is filter base class. Okay. So filter base class, what is the filter base class here? It is aims to guarantee a single execution per request dispatch in any servlet container. So it is working along with the servlet container filters. That's what I said you. So servlets, before servlets itself, filters will be executed. That's what it is trying to say. It will, the filters are always working with the servlet container. Nothing but it is going to verify any servlets are there or something, whatever it is. It provides a do filter internal method. Yeah, this is the method level. We are going to implement this entire logic, guys. So whatever the steps I explained you right now, these are all logic. Whatever you are going to do means where you are going to write do filter method. Do filter method. So let's see here once per request filter, and we have unimplemented method means what is this method, guys? Definitely abstract method. So whenever it is abstract method means can we expect this class as abstract class also? Definitely, right? See, this is how your core Java fundamentals are helping you to understand the advanced concepts. Why the moment you got overriding method as mandatory, even though it is a class means 100 percentage, this class is having one abstract method. That's why we have to override from our implemented extended class. So whenever it is having one abstract method means this class is abstract class. In core Java, we know that whenever a class contains an abstract method, that class must and should be abstract class. So that is how you have core Java knowledge is helping you to understand all advanced concepts. Okay. Yeah. Now let's define in this case all the logic whatever we discussed so far in our high level point of view, whatever we discuss, let's implement all this logic. Okay. So what we have to do right now in this case again. So you have to provide all the logic in this case. Yeah, if you observe here, again this method, whatever the method you take an abstract method for implementation, it's having what, guys? Servlet request, servlet response, filter chain. Yeah, generally when you are working with filters here also in the advanced Java point of view, you will have request response as well as filter chain. So what is the filter chain means? sometimes we will define more than one filter in our applications. Filter 1, filter 2, like that. We will define multiple filter classes. So we have to define the order which filter has to be executed, which filter should call which filter should call another filter, like that. We are going to make a chain. That's what called as filter chain. So filter 1 is calling to the, once filter 1 execution is completed, then it will go to the filter 2. Like filter 1 will pass the request and responses to filter 2. Similarly, once filter 2 completed do filter method, then the request will be forwarded to the filter 3 do filter method level. So that is what the filter chain is talking about here. It is. So that's why I'm telling you. So just go through the filter knowledge once. So what is a filter chain and all, just go through it. Okay, if you see here, Jakarta.servlets. It's purely from the advanced Java. Okay. So that's why fundamentals are always important to us to work with any frameworks, guys. So the reason is that's what there is no guarantee after 10 years your Spring Boot is going to be available in the market. I'm telling you, there might be a chance Spring Boot is going away from the market. I know the upcoming things. At least we are just experiencing small things from the real life. I mean, from the real time applications point of view, or when we are talking to the colleagues, some other developers from different applications. So people are saying like they are using some other things instead of Spring Boot, instead of like that. So that means what is the point here? It is there is no guarantee of frameworks will be available lifetime. But the fundamentals, the basic things, whatever available in the core Java and advanced Java point of view, JSC point of view. So those are always be standards. On top of that standards, you can use anything. So there is no guarantee Spring Boot will is going to be available for our lifetime means no, we don't have any guarantee. Maybe something can come and it can override. Little bit. Quarkus framework is getting popularity slowly. Who knows? Maybe one find it may overcome the Spring Boot also. But it will take time. It's not like over the night nothing will happen. It will take time, like 5 to 6 years, 10 years also. But it's not like lifetime everything will be existed. No, we can't. We don't have that guarantee. So that's why be strong in the fundamentals always. Then you can work with any framework. Okay, so let's come back here. First thing, what you have to do. So what we discussed, first of all, point number one, what is the logic we have to write here? It is point number one. First of all, token available or not. Token available or not. So what is the meaning of token available or not? Whenever, sorry, token available or not. So what is the point of token available or not? Whenever an incoming request coming from client to server application. So client to server application, the request is coming. Assume protected API point of view right now. Okay. So everything is protected point of view. Protected API point of view. So whenever client sent a request for accessing an API, so we said token is mandatory, right? Yeah, okay. So how the token is coming now? Sorry, I have typing problems. Yeah, token is always mandatory. So we decided tokens always shared along with the headers. Shared along with the headers always. When server sending a token to the client or client sending token to the server, whatever it is, but this informations always are exchanged via headers point of view. Now with respect to request point of view, in this case we are dealing with request right now. Request. So the token should come along with request header, and let's take the header name as our user defined header name. We will take user defined header name. We are taking here, it is like something like authorization. Generally people will take same the header name, authorization as the header name. So what is the header name? We are taking authorization and the token value like this. Just a high level point of view I'm giving. So that means Now, what is the request header in this case is we are taking the token should come always with this header name. What is that header name is authorization. So you know header and header value is always in the key value formats, right? So key in the sense header point generally. So in this case, I am expecting in entire application point of view, whenever a incoming request coming from client to server application, client to our backend application, so it has to come up with always authorization header along with the token. It's a fixed note. So that means now in our application point of view also, it's a different one. Okay, now in our application point of view also, so what we decided, the header name client is going to send always with the name called as authorization. Authorization is the header. So this will contain always, this header will contain always key value, sorry, token value. This header will bring always token value. Okay, fine. So after that, what else we have to see? Okay. So let's implement first of all until this point of view. So what I'm doing right now is, so how to get the header and value. So we know that in the request level always contains, we will always have a headers, body headers, right? So when we discussed request point of view, we know that a request will always have two things, body and payload and headers, right? So that means the request object will contains the headers. So this we discussed in our Spring Boot web module also. Request dot get header. So what is the name? You have to pass authorization. So that means our token always comes only with this header name. If they are sending with any other header name, then it's a invalid. Client application should send always token with this header name only. So that's why I taken header name like this. Then once I got this string token, yeah, I got like this request, yeah, whatever it is, token or JWT token. Let's take meaningful names. JWT token, something like that. I got it. So now assume again there are two scenarios. What are those scenarios? One thing is token may be available, then you will go for the validating the token. If token not available, that means client not send any token. That means you have to make sure if token is null, if JWT token is not equal to null, that means token is present. So that means sysout token presented, token presented. Okay, so the incoming. See, if you are taking loggers concept instead of sysouts, these messages you have to write in the logger.debug point of view, because I told you what is the how to use logger.info, logger.debug also in our logging session. So incoming token point of view, I'll say like plus JWT token. I'm just printing so that once our application got started, then we will see logs in an order. Token presented like that. So this is from the class called as once per request filter. So if you take in logger.info, then you don't need to write class names also. You will see timestamps and everything. That's the advantage. You can do that. Okay. So, okay, token is available. Then what is the next step? Validating the token. Validating the token. Now this, okay, we will validate it. If token is null, that means this header is not having, maybe this header is not presented, then what you will get? You will get null or empty. Assume header is presented but value is empty. So that means else not equal to null, and okay, it's all, we can think the use cases. JWT token is dot is empty, I think. Yeah, we Spring provided latest methods. Is blank returns true if the string is empty or contains only white spaces point of view, otherwise false. Is blank not blank, it should not be blank, it should not be null, it should not be blank. And JWT token, say it's JWT token dot is empty, true, so that means not empty. So it should not be blank, it should not be empty, it should not be null. Then only you will do all this validating the token. Either of them is fail, that means token is missed, or token sent as empty token, or with some white spaces and something like, so it's all empty point of view means this is empty. Okay, blank space means this is blank space, empty plus blank space, or else null. So we are checking, we are saying like it should not be empty, it should not be blank, it should not be null. So then we are going to do all this. If else, then what you are saying is, we are saying like token is missing. Token is token not presented, whatever it is. Token not presented. Please come with, please add a token, whatever it is. Okay, please add token, whatever it is, just like that. So if anything is missing, okay, cool. This is also clear. Now validating the token. What is the meaning of validating the token again in this case? So validating the token means you have to make sure the token point of view everything is right, or I mean he is validating the token means we know that we discussed already, we will verify user name matching or not with the incoming user ID point of view, as well as token expiry. Token expiry point of view also we have to take few more things. Token expiry point of view also we have to take few more things, right? So let's see. Yeah, by consolidating these two information, we will see like token is a valid token or not. We will discuss all this information. So requested username should match with the token username, as well as token should not be expired. That is what the two use cases we have to consider in this case. So what we can do is, okay, let's see here now. String email ID or user ID, whatever you can take based on the terminology point of view, equal to null, and then user ID equal to, so first of all I'm getting the username. So what I'm doing is getting username from token, getting username from the token. So how to get username from the token? We need we are already have a class, we already have a class, right? We already have which class? JWT till. There, by using this class we are already implemented the logic. From that we can check, we can create the tokens, we can validate the tokens, we can get the user IDs from the token, everything we can do that. So it's a component class. So the moment it is a component class means I can do what? Auto wiring here. I can do auto wire so that this class instance is automatically injected by Spring Container dependency injection. So pure core module logic. So dependency injection will happen. Now utilize this object JWT dot get user ID from the token. So what is the token you are passing? This token, whatever sent by the client application that you are passing. So that it will give what? User ID. Now let's do one thing. This sort of, I'm writing one more statement. Request came from an user. Request came from an user. Like, what is the user ID? This is what you just got it. Just we got only user ID, not even expiry point of view also. Okay. So we are not done complete validation. Just we got user ID. But what is the next step? I said, guys, we have to verify token user ID. Token user ID is matching with the requested user ID or not. Requested user ID or not. Token user ID is matching with the requested user ID or not. So for that, what we have to do? So what I am doing, let's see here now. You got the user ID from the token, okay, not from the request body or something. So what I'm doing here, it is right now. If username, user ID not equal to null. See, it's all basic null checks, guys. Okay, it's not like you have to write all this. Just to avoid the null pointer exception point of view, generally as a real-time point of view, we'll write always null checks. So that's why I used to write everywhere this kind of things. It's a real-time point of view, basic standards of writing the programming, writing the null checks and everything to avoid the null pointer errors. Okay, so if user ID is not equal to null, that means whatever the user ID you got from the token is not equal to null. See, in case assume token is missing, then what is the user ID value will become null. So that means now whatever the logic I am going to write inside the if block will not be executed. Whatever the logic I am going to write now inside the if block will not be executed. Right? So that is what the point here it is. That is what the point here it is. Okay. And here I said one more thing also earlier. We have a concept called a security context. In our previous session also I said internally Spring Boot security module will maintain some security context. Somewhere I mentioned. But anyway, I'll let you know one thing. So usually whenever we added Spring security module to our Spring Boot application point of view, what it will do is internally, it will maintain some security context. That means assume in the runtime memory point of view, some security context is nothing but a dynamic memory, okay, some object. So it will store some temporary information while making these security checks. So security context. For example, assume a request came from the Dilip 123. So this value, this data, now the security check should happen for this user ID, right? So what internally this Spring security context will do is security context. This memory is nothing but reserved only for the security point of view. This memory, this area is always created only for the Spring security context point of view. Spring security context. So what it will do is temporarily it will utilize, okay, let's validate Dilip user information like that, Dilip123@gmail.com point of view. It will security point of view, assume in a simple terminology, I'll tell you, security pass or fail, or what is the position security status. Okay, I'll say like this instead of that, this user security status. What is the security status till now? Okay, what is the security status till now? So as of now, the request just came from the Dilip 123. So status is null only. Still, the Dilip security is not validated. Security is not validated. Once Dilip security is validated with the token point of view, then the status I will update it as a pass. Maybe if everything is good. So by default, I mean, I'm making it as a null. Once security check is happened, like nothing but the incoming token, whatever token I got, and it is a valid token and everything is good, then security module decided like, okay, this guy security is good. Let's, okay. So security check is pass. Security check is pass like that. So the moment security check is passed means then security layer will understand, okay, Dilip 123 point of view, all security checks are completed. Let him allow to access the controller layer, or let the request will be forwarded for next step. Like that, internally Spring security context will be maintained to store this dynamic information for every user point of view. So some kind of temporary memory you can assume like that to store all the dynamic results. So that's how here Spring security context is giving one predefined class again. See here, security context. Yeah, if you see here, I think this one, this is the class. What it is saying, associates a given security context with the current execution thread. So current execution thread means simply I said like current user, current request point of view, right? So Dilip at the rate point of view. That is what the point here it is. This class provides a series of static methods that delegate to an instance of security context holder strategy. Okay, the purpose of the class to provide a convenient way to specify that the strategy that should be used for a given JVM point of view. So simple, that's what I said. It's a dynamic memory point of view. That's what I said. It's a memory, all these things. Okay, it's some kind of temporary. Now let's take that class security context holder dot get uh, context holder strategy. Yeah, get context, obtain the current security context. That means from that memory point of view, get authentication equal to null. So because yes, as of now we are not done any security check, right? That's why it's null. Assume early second request second time. I mean Dilip point of view came immediately, then security check is not null, right? So that is all. I mean security context level, it will be updated as already something like with a different status but not null like that. We will see. We will add lot of logs. At last, I'll explain entire the flow. Let's add the logs. It will gives us more understanding things. Uh, so the request point of view, it reached to this class. So now validating token user ID with the database. Token validate with the user database. That is one thing. Now validating user, sorry, now validating token is expired or not. Okay, so that means again two scenarios will come here. It is if expired, something else. If not expired, that means it's a valid token. It's a valid token. So that means here again, the point here it is if token not expired, if token not expired, that means it's a valid token point of view. Let's consider like that. If token is not expired, then make a call to the DB. Mm, give me a second. Okay, sorry. So here we have to do one more thing also. What it is if user ID is not equal to null and security context is null for that user. So what we have to do is get user information from the database by passing user ID. By passing user ID. So which user ID got from the token? Got from the token. So from the user ID you got from the token you got the user ID, right? Now by passing that user ID you have to get user information from the database. So why we have to do this step, guys? Who knows? For example, if you taken this scenario like this, now again client server. Okay, so client point of view, a user called as abc@gmail.com sending a request. Okay, he is having a valid token also. Assume token is also a valid token he is having. Token is also valid token. Assume the request he is sending at 9:54 right now, 9:54 a.m. Valid token. So the request reached to the server. Okay. Now why we are making, so what we did from this token by using this token, what we did in our security layer, what we are doing from this token, we got the user ID. User ID. So what is the user ID we will get? abc@gmail.com. So once we got it, abc@gmail.com user ID, we got it. abc at the rate, we got it. Now what we are doing again by using this user ID, again we are making a call to the DB. So DB means table, right? Our table point of view, database table point of view. Why? By passing this user ID, we are getting all user information from the DB table dynamically. So at dynamically, what we are doing, we are passing this user ID and we are getting all the information. His first name is ABC, his mail, okay, abc@gmail.com, his password, something like his password, and his information, his other information. Whatever it is, all the user details we are getting, we have to get all the user details information. We have to get all the user details. So why we have to do this step? What is the importance of doing that? For example, assume your account got deleted. Assume some reason your account is deleted or blocked or logged, whatever the reason is, at 9:52 a.m. So what is my point here? It is why you are making this call to DB by passing. See, token point of view, he is having a valid token. That's okay. He received that token maybe at maybe assume like 9:50 9:50 a.m. he received the token, and assume the token expiry is maybe 15 minutes or 30 minutes or whatever it is. But he sent request at 9:54. But the reason is 9:52 level somehow his information got deleted. I mean, his account got blocked or his account is locked. So that means in this case, if I am not contacting the DB, if I am not contacting the DB at 9:54 level, whenever the request I got, if I'm not contacting the DB, how do I know that if I'm not contacting the DB, if I feel like the token is a valid token, the token is a valid token with respect to, see, in this case, time not expired. User ID is matching. That means token is a valid. Token point of it is a valid token. But why I'm doing dynamic call to the DB in the sense, I would like to know the current status of the user account, whether his information available in the DB or not, or his account, his information is logged or blocked. Assume got deleted. Then what will happen, guys? Whenever I pass this, you will get null. Null. You will get null. So that means what? Now what is the problem in this case? User information not existed in the DB. His information got deleted. His profile got deleted some reason. That means logically you should not allow him to access the protected API, right? So his information got deleted at 9:52. If you are not making a DB call, what will happen? immediately security layer will say like, okay, let's go to the controller layer and let's execute whatever the thing you would like to do that. For example, upload photo or whatever it is. So but the point in this case, one of the use cases, by the time this user profile is deleted, some reason, just 1 minute back only, his account got logged or blocked or whatever it is. So how do I know that? That means directly if I am giving access to this API, automatically, even though that profile got deleted from the DB, still he was able to access, he was able to execute the API. So that's why we have to make a dynamic call. So in this case, what is the concept we are doing is we are making a dynamic call to the DB. Hey DB, so could you please give information of abc at the rate gmail, okay, abc at the rate gmail.com, like that. Then database is responding, okay, let's take all the user information, like that. See who is doing all these things, guys? Security layer only. That is the purpose we created this class. That is the purpose we created this class. Now internally Spring Security module will pass that user ID nothing but in the space, and it is passing here, and you are getting all the information in which object? User details object. Now this user details object is attached to the Spring Security context for the user ID called as abc at the rate gmail.com. Security context. Security context point of view. Security context. That is what I mentioned in our just before that. So security memory point of view. So now what it is saying, it's saying like, okay, Dilip point of view, the information loaded into security context. Now what is the object of this? User details. User details. So how Spring knowing that, I mean, how Spring security module getting this bean object means from here it is getting. From this class by calling this instance, and how it is identifying this instance, again this service implementation. So that means Spring Security module internally identifying the class which is implemented this interface is responsible to provide user information always in the format of user details object. So this is given by Spring Security. This is also given by the Spring Security. So that means finally this class help we have to take now to make a DB call based on the user ID point of view. So it is a component class, right? So that what I can do, I can auto-wire it. Again, auto-wire it. Auto-wire it. And what is the class name? Spring Security, what we written, Spring Security User Authentication Service. Okay, so this is what we written that. Now by taking this class help, what I am doing, I am making a call to the DB. User authentication service dot load username, and what I am passing this user ID which I got from the token. And by passing that, what I'm getting data from the DB, whichever the user ID I got from the DB level. Now what is the information you will get here, guys? The object name is user details object. User details object. So this is the user details object, you will get it. Now what I am doing is, from this user details object, whatever I got, that is what I am passing to the, okay, let me write that. Now passing the unique user ID to the token validator. Now passing user ID came from database. See how much real time configuration we are doing here. It is, you are not purely depending on the incoming client information. We are making dynamic call to the DB. And from that dynamic call, I got again this email ID. So what I am doing, this email ID is matching with the token user ID or not. See, this is how I'm doing that. Yes. From the token ID, token, you got this user ID earlier, right? So like that, we are just making a proper check with respect to other columns point of view also, like that. So came from DB to the token validator. Okay, to the token validator. The moment you are passing to the token validator, yeah, so this is what. So now validating the token is expired or not, as well as and matching username also. Guys, whatever we are understanding in the security module, just like a basic flow, but generally in real-time application point of view, some customization will happen based on their flows, based on their data. But we are just having a basic overview, basic idea how security module will be implemented, how it will work under. But okay, so this is more enough. But if you are having this knowledge, you can easily understand in your applications, going further in any application, if they did some customization to the security layer, we can understand easily. So it's, but don't expect exactly as it is same thing we are going to implement in our going further in our real time applications. No, definitely customization will happen. Okay, so let's see here now once per request filter. Okay, validating the token. So to validate the token, what I will do, JWT util, I need to help JWT util dot validate is valid token. So I'm passing the token, comma, I'm passing the user ID from the DB, whatever I'm receiving. Get username. I think entity information, if you go here, this one. So here you are returning the email ID, right? Dynamically. That's why you are overriding this method. And that's why I said this is a very important thing. So that information I am passing here it is. Now internally the logic will go to this method level. So internally it will get again, it will read token by path. Okay, from the token it will get some email ID and that email ID is matching with the requester email ID. So that means this user ID, nothing but whatever I am passing right now is both are matching. That means user ID point of view good, as well as time constraint also it will verify, as well as it will verify time also. Is token not expired? If both are true, then finally the result you will get it as a Boolean is valid token. So now let's write again this out. Yeah, token validation result means whether it is a true or false, you can see that. Just writing the helping statement. Okay, now this token is valid. So that means from this we have to know two things. One is user existed from the DB, that check is completed in the DB level, user data is available, point number one. Even token is also valid token. Token is also a valid token. So that means now his security check is completed. His security check is completed. Why? Data is available in the DB and token is also valid. That means his user ID is matching as well as token is also not expired. Token is also not expired. So that's why what we have to do here it is, again, here the security context earlier is what? Null, right? Now we are making it as not null. That means if for this user ID point of view, security context in the memory point of view, we are saying like this check is completed. That's what I said. By default, it is just like null and we will update it as a not null point of view. So that's why what we are doing is here it is, if is token is valid token, if token is a valid token, is valid token, yes, that means true. If it is a valid token means true, means what we are doing is sys out of setting security context as not null. That means we are updating the security context for this user ID point of view, what's happening like that. updating the security context for that user ID. As security check is completed, something like that. Okay, so for that, again, what we are doing in this case is, yeah, we have a concept called as username. You have to update username password authentication token. We have to take this help username password token equal to new username password authentication token. You can take first one also. So here I am passing the data which I got from the DB. So that's what I said. This entire data you're updating in the security context level. If you go here, yeah, security context level, what you're doing, you're keeping first name, last name, password, all the information of the user ID we are keeping in the security context. So for that, what Spring Security given is again one more class given called as username password authentication token. So that means by default this token internally null in the security context level for that user ID. Now you are creating a, see, by seeing this token name, don't confuse like token. So what this, see, understand the class. So an Spring authentication implementation that is designed for simple presentation of a username and password. The principal and credentials should be set with an object that provides the respective property via whatever it is. So what it is trying to say is whatever the security is completed, just provide that user details information and the credentials here I'm passing as null. Okay, so I'm just passing the information here as a null. Okay, so now this token you have to update. Yeah, sorry. Let's take, I'll take like a shortcut point of view, authentication token, user credentials authentication token. And authentication token point, I think we have to update something again here. I'll give you that. Not erase credentials. Get the details. Okay, it's all get, but we have to set something, set details. So what we have to set here again is, yeah, this is one thing we have to hardcore the value, web security context or something will be there, security. Yeah, here I think web authentication details. Dot. So called by a class when it was wishes a new authentication details instance to be created. See, that means by calling this for this current HTTP servlet request point of view, the security authentication token is updated. That's what we are passing. HTTP servlet request object means for the current HTTP servlet request point of view, whatever the request came for the user point of view, the token is updated like that. The token is updated. So that means that security check is completed point of view. Then again, what we are going to do here, it is security context holder. Same way, whatever it is null, now we will set it as not null. Whatever you given earlier null, right? Same point of view, get context dot set authentication, and here I am passing the authentication token null. So that means what's happened, guys. Now this is what I said earlier. If you go here, by default status will be as null. Now instead of pass means that's what here the status updated as with this token. With what this token information is saying in the Spring security context for the current request for so and so user for the current for so and so HTTP request object point of view. Okay, the security check is completed like that. So you are updating the security context like that for the current HTTP servlet request point of view. This is what you have to do that. So this is all about else if token not expired. Okay, this line I have to write here. If getting user information from the database by passing user ID. Okay, so getting from the DB and then the user ID, whatever you got, you are passing to the validating the token along with the real token, and you are passing the username what you received from the DB. And once token is valid, then you are setting context as token is good like that. In case it is an invalid token, then you will say like token is invalid, token is invalid. Please try with valid token something like that. We will handle some logic here it is in case if it is. Okay, cool. Now the most important step what we have to do here it is, if you go to the do filter method, right? Yeah, this is the last line. Here you have filter chain object, filter chain object. So we have to write this method always filter chain dot do filter of current request and current response. This line is mandatory, guys. Okay, so this line is always mandatory. That means you are telling to the Spring security, I mean Spring module is if you are having other filters, like whenever you define more filters, right? So I said already somewhere. Yeah, this one filter 1, filter 2, filter 3 point of view. You are saying like, okay, I'm done with my filter logic. Now, if you have any other filter, forward same request and response. Whatever the incoming request and response came, request and instant and response instance, same you're passing to the other filter, other filter. If any other filters are there, those will be executed. If not there, then request will be forwarded to the respectively to dispatcher servlet like that. So that's why this line is mandatory. Is generally this will be called as a last line of the do filter method, so that once this logic is executed, the request we are forwarding to the filters, other filter like that. So that's why this filter chain object is provided here. You're chaining the filter. That's the importance of this method. Okay, so this is all about what is the logic we implemented today is right now. Just if token validation with respect to protected API point of view, token validation with respect to protected API point of view. For every request point of view, this logic will be executed now. For every request point of view, this logic will be executed. So this is all process will happen. Okay, cool. Now the next step. So if you observe again this explanation, what I said from our day one onwards, we are understanding like we have to make sure our APIs are very clear whether which is a protected, which is a non-protected. Non-protected point of view. So that means now we have to configure security layer such a way like, okay, which APIs are under which APIs are under protected mode and which are under public mode. So this configuration we are not done as of now. Only thing is the logic what we written right now is this will be definitely executed for all protected APIs. This logic. Why protected APIs needs to come up with always valid JWT token point of view. But at the same time, we should tell to the Spring security layer, everything is not a protected API. See, if you are not configured this, then internally security layer will consider every API is a public API, sorry, protected API by default. But in case our requirement point of view, if you want to configure everything, some of them as protected and some of them are public, like we taken the list also, right? We taken the list also. So I would like to make sure which are started with slash public as a public APIs, which are started with API as a private protected API point of view. All REST services point of view. So how to segregate that configuration? That is what we have to do now. So I think we are reaching to the last step. Now that means here we have to take again one more configuration class. We have to do let's take new class app secure. I mean, we have few more points also as part of this. I'll explain that. Security configuration, app security configuration. Okay. So it's a configuration class. You know what is the meaning of configuration class? Spring configuration. So when we will write configuration classes, guys, generally to define the bean objects. To define the bean methods, nothing but to create the bean objects. Right? Generally, that is the main purpose of the configuration classes. So that means here we are going to write couple of bean methods, and those bean out of them, one is the security. Okay, what is the next one out of that? What is the thing is security filtering, security filter chain point of view we have to do. So that's what you are segregating, which is a public API, which is a protected API, like that, which is a public or protected API. With that configuration we are doing now. For that also Spring Boot framework given a predefined uh, object only. That object we have to utilize and we have to configure whether it is a protected API or not. So let's write this step. Public, I think security filter chain, security. Yeah, if you see here, interface security filter chain. So apply security or whatever it is, or security config. The method name you can take anything. So it should be bean method because this will be executed by the container automatically. Security config this method, and here you will have you have to return security filter chain. Okay, so let's take like return null. We'll replace the null now. So here we have something like HTTP security. Yeah, if you see here, this is the object again. You have to utilize it. HTTP security. So what it is saying, HTTP security is similar to Spring security. Okay, leave out XML. Now we are going with all with respect to the point of view. It allows configuring web-based security for specific HTTP request. Yes, that is what we are trying to say. Specific HTTP request point of view. What should happen? What should not be happen in a specific request point of view. That is all we are configuring based on into this object level HTTP security. By default, it will be applied to all requests. That's what I said right now. I said right. If you are not configuring this, then everything is considering under the protected only. Nothing but everything safe security point of view. If you are not configuring this, but See, your requirement is saying like all our APIs are protected, then you don't need to do this thing. But whenever your application is having public and protected, then it's better to know this configuration. That's why I taken this. Okay, let's take the method parameter called as HTTP security. And if you go to the HTTP security also, see it's a final class. You know that what is the meaning of final class and everything. The configuration will require that any URL that requested will require a user with role-based authentication, all these things. Deprecated since 6.4. Okay, anyway, so see here. Now let's take this method parameter HTTP security, and here you have to configure the details, everything. So how to configure? Here it is. Let's do one thing. See system dot out dot println configuring the rules, configuring the security rules. Configuring the security rules. Yeah, this is the last class. I mean, we have few more logic also. Much, I mean, little bit logic is there, but majority of the security configuration will be done with this. But few more things are there. That means by tomorrow we are completely done with the security layer. We'll finish by security layer, including the testing point of view. We'll see how tokens we are passing from the postman point of view and all. We'll try to understand. So we'll finish this method and rest we will see tomorrow. But by tomorrow, security module will be finished. Meanwhile, just understand the flow and just remember the things. Configuring the security rules. Okay, so here what you have to do is we have some predefined methods again from this. Uh, so generally you can define all these things. Cross-site request forgery, CORS, CSRF, cross-site request forgery. That means from the different applications, by default, you should not allow access. That is what the CSRF is saying. CSRF means cross-site request forgery protection. This is activated by default when using enable web security. You can disable it using like this also. It is saying like if you want to disable it, okay, leave it. Even cars also same thing. Cross-site request forgery point of view. See, lambda expressions they are expecting. That means how much good knowledge you should have in the Java 8 features. Until Spring 5, the way you are writing code is different here, guys. From Spring 6, they change a lot of things in the security module. Okay, until Spring 5, things are different, little bit different. But Spring 6 onwards, they modify a lot of things in Spring 6. Okay, so when you are referring the tutorials also, if you are going to observe first of all whether it is a Spring 5 or 6, because we are going with Spring 6. Cross-site request forgery disable it. We are not enabling. That means we are not allowing requests from other websites like point of view, and cross origin also. So host is same, but host names, port numbers are different, something like that. Generally, this is the error you will get when you integrate a front end from the back end point of view. Then you can enable this. Course error, generally course errors we will get at that time. Mm. So you're making security like requests should not be allowed from different websites, guys. Simply not allowed from other sites, from other domains point of view, like that. So This is also CORS error. Just refer what is CSRF, what is CORS, like that. Even if you are not taking this also, by default they are taking as disabled only. Okay, next method here. If you see the lot of predefined methods, see whatever you are seeing here, this cross mark is nothing but deprecated methods, guys. These are all until Spring 5 point of view. That's why I said Spring 5 level method names are different. Spring 6 level method names are different. And Spring 5 level, the coding is style is different. And Spring 6 point of view, the methods what these guys are provided is completely on the functional programming point of view. If you observe here, lambda expressions. So that's what. Add filter, no. This is last step. Authorization. Authorize request. No, not this one. Yeah, this is one. Deprecated method we should not take. Authorize HTTP request. Now see, this method is saying what? Allows restricting access based upon the HTTP servlet request using request matchers. Okay, implements something like the most basic example to configure all URLs to require the role user. Okay, leave it. Users, see here. Once you are writing, you will understand very easily. Authorize. Yeah, this one, not deprecated method. So here you are defining which APIs are protected API, which are not protected API. See here how to do that. So I'm saying like in this case again, all requests, okay, and request dot, mm, yeah, request matches you have to take. Request matches. See here again, request matches. You can define HTTP method level also. You can define URI pattern level also, like that case. Okay. So I'll take string format in this case. Method and string patterns, which HTTP methods should be allowed, should not be allowed. That is also you can define in the security point of view, like that. So you can build lot of rules in this case. Okay, it's a builder object, means you can define lot of rules in this case. Okay, my point here it is, what I'm trying to say here it is slash public star slash star, whatever coming with the slash public star should be permitted all, dot permit all. Apart from this, if any other request came, that should be authenticated. Okay, that should be authenticated. Sorry, you have to finish this one. So what it is saying is whatever coming with slash public API. That is what we decided, right? Assume we implemented APIs like this. After public slash something, I would like to make it as a no authentication. But apart from that, any other request, it should be considered always as authentication. So that's why I made slash public slash star, anything is permitted all. So that means no security. But apart from that, any other request should be authenticated. Should be authenticated. That is what the defined rules we defined here it is. So here you will define all the rules, security rules, which HTTP methods has to see. This object is important to configure the request should, whether it is a protected or public API. I mean, which has to be authenticated, which should not be authenticated. Permit all means what? Without security. See here. Okay, let's finish this ending also. Then you will see that compile time error. So this method is this dot. So here again, add filter. add filter before. Yeah, here what I will do is we created right now one filter class, right? That is what we have to chain here. So that means we are making a link to this class. So this is a configuration, right? So let's do auto wire. Yeah, so what I'm doing is this dot JWT filter, comma, and we taken it's all username password authentication, right? We have one more internal filter called as username password authentication token filter. Yeah, sorry, username password authentication filter. So processes an authentication from this submission called by authentication processing filter prior to the Spring Security 3. Logins from must present two parameters like this filter, a username and password. So that is what we are doing in this case, right? Yeah, don't worry. We will see all the internal details again tomorrow once we are done with this programming point of view. And yeah, what it is saying, I think it is throwing some exception. Okay, let's throw it an exception, checked exception. And then here security filter chain, we have to call it. We have to return that object. So from this we can call build all the rules. The moment you are calling build means you are setting all these rules, you are building all these rules. So internal it will return security filter chain object. So it's now we are 95% done, guys. Okay. So we have few more things, something like password encryption we have to add here. So Spring Boot security module will always suggest doing the password encryptions. We should not store plain passwords to the database. That's a rule generally we will follow in real-time applications. So basic encryption we have to do generally. So that password encryption also we will do that. So very small steps are pending tomorrow. So once we are done with that pending steps, then we will see the testing part also in tomorrow class.